Founder's knife launch. What are you trying to do? I just took it and put it away. I didn't know you needed to show slides.
I had it set up.
You didn't have it plugged in.
Well, I unplugged it.
As seen on. So, one of my strategies here, because I'm pretty good at leaving pieces behind, is every time I move my computer off here, I put all the pieces that come with my computer back in the bag so I don't go, hey, Jack, you have my only charge cable at your house, and I'm in Tennessee and you're in Texas. And Jack doesn't like to mail things to people, which, yeah. So when you leave, if you leave your pieces here, your pieces are here forever and likely to be thrown away by Dorothy. Just saying. So anyway, I got a little too overly tidy on you there, didn't I, Patrick?
Yeah.
Anyway, is his mic on?
Mic, check.
Yeah. Okay. So Pat, are we live on the streamy thingy? Hi, streamy people. You're in my chair, Jake. Thank you, Jake. No, I just sat there because Jack was in my chair and I can't do that to him. He just won't get up. Yeah. All right, guys. So Patrick's gone through a major transformation since I first met him here, when the first words to him were, "You're an asshole." That's what I told him.
Thanks, Nicole.
And he just laughed and said, "Thanks, Nicole." That's literally what he did. He's turned out to be one of the best friends I have met here. I met him the first year, and he started dropping by my house on the way through from time to time. He started calling me and saying things like, "So the label's on your coffee. The ink's rubbing off, Nicole. You need to do better." That's the kind of friend you want, right? He knows a lot about how to get some stuff produced and shipped. And if you haven't talked to him about that aspect, if you have something that's doing that, definitely get time to do that. He also makes a knife that's very sharp. Do you have any left for? Oh, you're not selling any today.
Not today.
Tomorrow?
Tonight.
Tonight. Oh, sure. After sunset.
Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Gotcha. So you can buy knives tonight after dinner and after sunset. And Andy wants one.
Andy wants.
Anyway, let's give it up for Patrick and let him talk to us about how he's made some major changes.
Thank you. So I got a question for you guys with a show of hands. How many people in this room has ever been choked out? Really? Wow. Nice.
You wish you could be a cool kid, Jay. You already got your once in a 10-year.
Well, I guess I'm done here. You guys have a great day. No, just so these workshops get a little bit rowdy from time to time. And back in, I think it was 2015, there was a gentleman here by the name of Thad Beckendorf. Thad is a drill sergeant at the time he was a drill sergeant in the Army. And he was talking about how in their training, they have to be choked out. And some guys were sitting around like, I think I'd like to know what it's like to be choked out. And Thad says, "No, you don't." And I'm like, "No, seriously, I'd like to experience what it's like." Now, at first I had my reservations about it because I've had asthma most of my life. And I always thought when you choke somebody out that you're choking them out, killing the air to their lungs until they pass out. But actually what you're doing is you got two arteries that run up to your brain, and your brain is like your control center for everything, right? So you're stopping the blood flow to your brain, and quickly your brain will run out of oxygen. And when that happens, you take a nice little nap. Now, you're only out for a couple seconds, hopefully, because if you stop the blood flow to the brain for very long at all, you start getting brain damage and all sorts of bad things can happen and you can die. So, I can't really, it's hard to explain what it's like, but there's a sensation you get when you come back to. It's like waking up from a really long nap and you're disoriented, but you feel like the rush of your blood going back to your brain. You feel tingling in your arms, and it's just a really crazy sensation. So I've actually have a little video here for you guys. This was not 2015. This was 2016. The second time I experienced this. So they have you stick your arm up in the air because when you go out, it's going to fall. Oh, yeah. And quick. Now, Thad, look at him. So kind. So if you ever have the opportunity to be choked out, you might want to. So yeah. Yeah.
Didn't you come out the first time punching?
Yeah, no. Yeah, the first time I was choked out, I thought I was fighting when I was coming to, but I wasn't fighting. There's no fight. So Jake, no questions. So what is mental toughness? Mental toughness is the ability to perform consistently under stress and pressure. Now, no matter who you are in life, we're all going to have times in our life where we have stress and pressure. And weak people crumble under stress and pressure. So when I was a kid, we moved somewhere around first grade. I moved out to a farm. And that year, when we moved out to the farm, I got sick, really sick. I had pneumonia 3 times in 1 year. And they started doing some testing, found out that I was allergic to microscopic mites, pollen, grass. Microscopic mites, for you guys that don't know, it's like in dust and cat hair and animal everything. It's everywhere, right? And so they started treating me. They diagnosed me with asthma and started treating my asthma. I'd go weekly and get a shot and just different things. And I had ironically enough, my brother's best friend had asthma as well. And his mother was a nurse. And in 1991, my brother's friend Ryan was at the movies with his mother and choked on some popcorn, and he passed away. And they said that even if he was in the hospital, they probably couldn't have saved him. Now, his mother being a nurse, he was on all sorts of different medication, and he took it like clockwork. And so from that point on, I really tried not to use medication if I didn't need to. But it's hard when you have an easy button in your pocket. So for those of you who don't know, never experienced asthma, I was perfectly normal for, my childhood. I did karate and gymnastics and was very active. But if I ran too much, my lungs would get tight and just couldn't breathe. I'd wheeze, and I hated running. I just hated it because if I kept pushing myself, then it could be deadly. However, so I didn't really push myself a lot. And running was just one of those things where, sure, I could run a little distance, but long distances really mess with my breathing, and I just wasn't good at it. So I never really pushed myself too hard because, like I said, I tried not to use my medication, but it's really hard when you're gasping for air, trying to breathe, and knowing that, hey, I can pull this out of my pocket and take a hit and be perfectly normal. So, fast forward kind of in life, I always had these jobs that were physically active. I could eat whatever I wanted. A lot of times I was known to, if I didn't feel like cooking as a young man, I might eat a bag of chips with a tub of sour French onion dip. That was a good meal. Or a lot of times, who here likes Oreos? You know why there's 3 rows of Oreos? There's 3 serving sizes. You know, I'd sit down with a glass of milk and Oreos and have a meal. I don't even know how many calories that is. That's probably insane. But so I had some really bad habits, and it really didn't matter because I had a high metabolism. I was really active. I always had physical jobs. And finally, you know, I went to school to become a lineman, and I didn't even know what that was until another lineman approached me. He's like, "Hey, have you ever considered being a lineman?" And um, when I went to school to be a lineman, I got out. It was the first time in my life where I made really good money, and we worked really hard. I got topped out, and then, you know, the lineman work has gotten so much easier over the last few years. Linemen used to have, that was a really physical job. They used to hand dig holes and set poles all by hand. But with more and more hydraulic equipment, trucks, electric tools, and stuff like that, the jobs have become way easier. And so now I'm making good money. I'm going out to eat almost every day. And after you top out, it's hard work sometimes, but there's a lot of days, like rain days, linemen can't get wet. Okay. Unless it's absolutely necessary. So if your power's not out and it's raining, we ain't working. So, you know, there's lots of days where we'd be cleaning up the shop or doing something when it's raining. You get topped out. It's pretty good job until it's not.
What is topped out?
Once you get your journeyman certification, takes about 4 years.
Maximum income as well.
Yeah, you're no longer, yeah, max, and well, not max, but yeah, you're just topped out, and then you got apprentices to do the dirty work. Let's see. So I don't know how many of you guys know this, but this guy named Jack, who's kind of a jerk, I started making knives. I made him a knife, and we put together the stakeholder program in 2013. And I was wanting to transition from being a full-time lineman, part-time knife maker, to a full-time knife maker. And it went really well. The website crashed. We sold out in under 6 minutes. And all of a sudden, I was catapulted into a new lifestyle. I was finally going to be living the dream, which sometimes a nightmare. I learned a lot. First of all, I learned that I couldn't make near as many knives as I thought I could. So I really thought that was the ticket to getting out of debt and being able to work from home. But I don't know how many of you guys have seen that, you know, how to get out of debt. Who knows how to get out of debt? I'll tell you a really good way not to get out of debt. Do not borrow money to pay off all your debt. And for anybody who doesn't realize, a Kickstarter is a really good way to borrow money and to do stuff. Well, basically, when I did my stakeholder launch, I took all of my debt that was owed to institutions and I transferred it to 100 wonderful people who believed in me and wanted to support that dream. So let's just say it's a little more stressful to owe 100 people who have your phone number and your email and say, "Hey, where's my knife?" And sometimes they'll send you emails from anonymously. Jake, no. So needless to say, the level of stress in my life increased dramatically after 2013. And I had everybody has stressful stuff. You know, my wife's had a lot of miscarriages and struggles, and we've spent time in the NICU and just all these different things. But things were starting to change. I was getting a little bit older. I was putting on a little bit of weight here and there. And guess what? Who else knows this about Jack? Jack knows this. When you work from home, do you know how many steps you can get in a day? I went from getting, probably 10,000 steps a day to maybe 700, and then working really long hours, sleeping really little hours, and then just the stress, the work, everything was kind of adding up. And my health was starting to pay for this lifestyle. So here's my family. We got 10 children, and this is actually some of my grandchildren here. So, I have a little bit of responsibility to provide for these people. And contrary to popular belief, knife making is not real profitable. So I started a new business. I'm putting on some weight. Let me get back on track here. Not working near as hard. My health was so bad that I would get winded just walking up steps, and my asthma started becoming a problem again. And I've gone through times in my life where I've been completely didn't use any medication for my asthma, but it was getting to the point where the rescue inhalers, they really don't want you using them except in emergency, like maybe not even once a month. But there was a time where I was using it every 4 hours. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and it's like I'd be breathing fine, and then an asthma attack would hit me, and I'd have to use my inhaler. And one day, I'm sitting in my Lazy Boy, aptly named, and my daughter's sitting on my lap, kind of on the side. And at this point, I've got a nebulizer, which is like a breathing machine, right by my chair because I'm having to use it every day. And I'm not real good at geography. And my wife asked me some sort of geography question, like, I don't know, where's Wyoming? And I don't know. I couldn't answer it. She found it funny. And I started laughing. And when I was laughing, I started coughing, and then I couldn't take a breath. So I was tapping on my daughter to get her off my lap. And the next thing I know, my wife and my daughter are staring at me, and I have that sensation from just like I had learned from when you pass out. And my wife and my daughter look scared. And my wife says, she actually was hitting me, and she said, what just happened? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I guess I passed out. So, we all know that we need to make changes in our life, and it's hard to make those changes. But this was kind of a turning point where, like walking up steps and getting winded, you're like, maybe I should do something. But passing out in front of your wife and kids, and it really just kind of stuck with me. So, the business was not really paying the bills. When I was a lineman, I could support, my family. I could support the farm. We had cows, we had goats, we had chickens, we had the whole 9 yards. And over the years, slowly these things started to go. First we sold the cow, and we sold, the goats, and in the spring of like 2019, we had to sell the farm. And I thought it was a good chance to get out because we weren't really happy with where we were at. Property values were coming up. Little did I know they were barely just getting started. And so I thought, this is a good chance to sell the farm, and then maybe we can buy something more like what we want. And so we sell the farm and move to a rental place, and we start renting. And then the great thing about these workshops is you meet all sorts of people they will change your life. The caliber of people at these workshops is just crazy. And in the fall of 2019, here at one of these workshops, I met one of my stakeholders who happened to be a Border Patrol agent, and not just any Border Patrol agent. He was on the BORSTAR team. So the BORSTAR is kind of like the special forces of the Border Patrol. They do swift water rescue, mountain rescue, and Mr. Chris Mills is his name, and he's just an incredibly fit dude. And I've met lots of people at these workshops who have changed my life. Jessica from Homemade Wanderlust, when she told her story about hiking the AT, that was another seed planted where I was like, man, I want to hike the AT. But knowing at this time, like I'm 5'7", I was 200 pounds, pushing maybe a little bit over. Yeah. And like I said, getting winded walking up steps. So, how far would I make it on the AT? So I bought the shoes, I bought the gear. Now I'm like, I need to start making some changes. But I also knew at this point in time, we had 9 children. I knew there was a good chance for number 10 to come along anytime. I knew that we had sold the farm. We're living in a rental house, barely making it by. And the writing was on the wall. It was time for me to go back to work. Now, the nice thing about being a journeyman lineman is I got a card in my pocket. At any time, I can go sign the books and go back to work. And I can make good money, 6 figures, holidays, benefits, all the bells and whistles, be eating out all the time again, watching the apprentices work. No, but there's a caveat with that. In order to be a lineman, I need this little thing called a medical card, a CDL. If I can't pass the CDL physical, nobody's going to hire me. Not to mention, I had been out of the workforce for over 7 years. And in a lot of professional jobs, when you leave the workforce, they're not real kind about letting you back in, But thankfully, lineman is pretty high demand. A lot of people are afraid of electricity. They're afraid of heights. They don't want to work outdoors. So it's a job that there's not many people that want to do it. So in the back of my head, I'm like, I need to make some money. I need to go back to work. My wife she could be pregnant anytime. She's always had struggles, insurance, all that kind of stuff. So it was at the workshop that I met Mr. Miller, and who here likes watches? I hate watches. I don't wear them because they get snagged on stuff. And it's funny what you notice about people. When I met Jessica and I seen her goofy shoes with the big toe box, I'm like, it looks like Ronald McDonald. Who would wear those shoes? So here I am wearing those shoes. And I met Mr. Miller, and I remember seeing this big old watch on his wrist, and I thought, man, that thing looks kind of goofy, big gaudy watch. And as we got to talking, and I found out it's a Garmin smartwatch. And these watches today, it's incredible. They can track your heart rate. They can track your stress. They give you all this information about your health that you may or may not want. So after leaving the workshop, I decided that there's a study somewhere. It's like, if you walk 10,000 steps a day, yada, yada, you'll be healthy. And so I decided that I was going to walk 10,000 steps a day. And knowing Nicole and her 3 things, that became number 1. That was on the top of my 3 things. And like Andy, where's Andy at? Like Andy was saying, do the hard thing first, right? So the good thing about being self-employed is I can do whatever I want from the time I wake up. I can mismanage my time however I see fit. So I decided to prioritize this 10,000 steps, start walking every morning. and just getting it done. And it wasn't long before, I started feeling better. Oh, and I seen Jack losing weight, this keto thing. And so when I left that workshop, I went keto, cut out all carbs and sugars, and even from my coffee, sadly so. And the weight just started falling off. I probably lost 15 pounds, 20 pounds within a matter of weeks. And I actually started feeling better. Now, when I was a lineman, I was stepping out of the truck one day. I tore the meniscus in my knee. And so when I got this Garmin watch, it also had training plans on it. And so I started, I'm like, I need to start. Walking's fine, but running's better. And so I started a training plan, and I'll never forget, they'd have you do a benchmark run. And the benchmark run was like a 3-minute warm up and then a 5-minute just run, right? Who here can run for 5 minutes? I thought I could. Boy, was I sadly mistaken. I made the mistake of what most runners do, inexperienced runners, is I took off running. Man, not as fast as I could, but I made a pretty good effort. And about 2 minutes, I really started to slow down. And by 3 minutes, I was in my head, okay, I'm not going to make it 5 minutes. And I don't remember how far or how long it was, but somewhere after 3 minutes, I had to stop. And I don't believe I had any medication for my asthma, but I started to have an asthma attack, and I just kind of rested my hands on my knees, and I just sat there, closed my eyes, and just waiting to pass out. And I was like, man, I didn't even run. It was like 0.3 miles, just less than a half a mile. I couldn't even run a half a mile. So, but thankfully with that program and stuff, started running, started working on my fitness. I ran a 5K, and this was, so it was the fall workshop of 2019. And by January, I'd say I lost like 25 pounds. I was down to about 175. I went through a 5K program. I ran a 5K. And then I like to set impossible or big goals. So I didn't go to a 10K. I did a half marathon. So I'm like, I'm going to run a half marathon. And I had decided then that I wanted to run a full marathon. And the average marathon time is somewhere around 4.5 hours. And so I wanted to try to get the average marathon time. So I put in to go back to work. COVID, I can't say the C. No. Everybody knows how that went. I got an interview in like February, I think, or sometime early 2020. Got hired back on. And I fully believe that there's no way I would have got hired back on at the 200 pounds I was. But I had now shaved my weight down and showed, the other big thing is, so I was 41 and my wife did get pregnant. And I was, I do this math, like, okay, I'm 41. So in 18 years, I'm going to be 59 when my son hits 18. What shape am I going to be in at 59? I didn't want to be the old man that couldn't go play catch with his son or couldn't go do anything with his son because he can't even, run a half a mile. So all these things were just kind of stacking up. And the thing about running is I started listening to a podcast called the 3 of 7 podcast. It's an ex-Navy SEAL guy by the name of Chad Wright. And he signed up to become a Navy SEAL, went all the way through the training selection, was at the very last physical, like he was done. He was a Navy SEAL. He just had to pass one more physical, and they found a cyst on his heart. They're not going to operate on a cyst on the heart, but it disqualified him from being a Navy SEAL. He set impossible goals. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. They locked him up because they don't really like it when you say, I signed up to be a Navy SEAL. I'm not taking another assignment. And he got, yeah. So he got kicked out. I think it was honorable. I don't know. They let him out. He found another doctor, an ex-vet, who agreed to operate on his heart and remove the cyst. And so he had the cyst removed, went back into the Navy, and went through all the training again and became a Navy SEAL. And as far as I know, he's the only person in history to go through selection twice and make it in. And what I started learning from him is mental toughness. After he got out of the military, he started doing ultra running. Who knows what ultra running is? They're doing these 100-mile races or last man standing races where they'll run a course, say like 3 or 4 miles, and you got to run it in an hour, and they just keep doing that hour after hour after hour until nobody's left. And he said, he mentioned something about running is more mental than it is physical. And a lot of things in life are more mental than they are physical. I don't know how many times I've seen people just quit because they just decide to quit. They just decide to give up. And the funny thing about if Chad Wright or even Chris Mills or, a lot of these people who are elite athletes or just do incredible things is they could be sitting here in this room with us and you would never know because they don't necessarily look like what you have in your head as that image of a Navy SEAL or a Green Beret or Delta Force or, whatever. But they have the one characteristic that is needed, and that's the mental toughness. The guys that quit SEAL training, all they got to do is go ring a bell, and they're reminded of that constantly. Hey, you ring that bell, all this will be over. You can go have a cheeseburger. You can go sit in a nice, comfortable chair. You don't have to suffer. But it's through the suffering that we grow, that we get mental toughness. So I went back to work. I trained for a marathon. I did my first marathon by myself, just picked a trail and went running. And it took me almost 6 hours to complete. But I completed it. And it wasn't, after I went back to work, my running kind of slowed down. And I didn't stay at work long. I went back to work for about 6 months. And I couldn't get moved to where I was working. Didn't want to be where I was working. And so I ended up quitting again, going back to the knives. And it was at Nicole's workshop. In the spring, I decided to go out for a run and in the dark and found a pothole and rolled my ankle pretty good. Went ahead and ran on back home anyways. And so that kind of put a halt on my running for a while. And there's going to be these potholes in life that are going to derail our plans. And you have to get past those. You have to pick up. So towards the beginning of this year, I started running again, training for a marathon. And 2 weeks ago, I just completed my first official marathon, and I got my time down to 5 hours and 15 minutes and 20 seconds. So I set a new PR, and I'm not to where I want to be. I still have higher goals. I would love to run a sub 4 hour marathon, and that's my goal. I don't know if it's possible with my asthma and my age, but I'm going to work for that. I'm going to work towards that. And it's important to have goals in life to keep us going, keep us driving, keep us improving. So here's I went back to work. So at Nicole's this spring, I ran with this Porterhouse. Porterhouse is also an ultra marathoner. And I knew this spring that I wasn't really in the shape to go running with Mr. Porterhouse. But how far is the dam? Is it 8 miles?
Maybe not that. The dam.
I thought it was like 3 or 4. But I mean, round trip would be 6 or somewhere around there. So anyways, I go run. I'm hoping that we're going to stop. Mr. Porterhouse wanted to run to the top of the dam. I'm hoping we're going to stop before then. So we go out, we start out running, and I'm slowing him down. I know. So we get to the base of the dam, and I told him, I was like, I'm pretty spent. So he ran all the way to the top, come back down, and then I really pushed it. I was like in zone 5 for over an hour, but it was a good run, and we had fun. My wife said when I was talking to her about mental toughness, she said the easiest time to be mentally tough is when you don't have a choice. There's going to be times in life where we don't have a choice. You're going to be faced with situations that you just don't have that choice. So it's important to condition ourselves to become mentally tough so that when we face these trials, we're more prepared for them. I like this quote from Ralph Walter Emerson. A hero is no braver than an ordinary man, but he's brave at 5 minutes longer. When running, you don't, it's deadly to sit here and think, I've got 10 more miles. You have to break it down. You have to break it down sometimes to just, I need to make it 10 more feet. That's how you accomplish your goals. You break them down into bite-sized pieces. Jessica Mills said, never quit on a bad day. When she was hiking the trail, there were bad days. There were days, raining, you got blisters on your feet, storms rolling in, lightning, thunder, all these things. She had a rule of never quit on a bad day. Chad Wright says, don't give voice to your pain. This doesn't mean like stuffing, like emotional stuff. This is physical pain. In their training, when they're running and doing these things, everybody around them is embracing the suck. Everybody around them feels the pain. When you're running a race, as much as Eric would like me to believe that it's all easy for him to run, I know that it's not easy. When we're running races, you pass a guy, you kind of keep it together and don't let them know that you're suffering too. But that guy next to you, he's suffering too. It may not be as bad, but it's not easy. That's why nobody does it. That's why not very many people do it. Because if it was easy, everybody would do it. Faith, I believe faith is a powerful thing. In Matthew, it says, Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say to you, if you have the faith as the grain of a mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, remove hence to a yonder place, and it shall be removed, and nothing shall be impossible for you. There's a lot of prosperity gospel and, all sorts of things. I'm not a believer in that, but I do believe that we limit ourselves so much because we say, oh, I can't do that. How many people, less than 1% of the population will ever run a marathon. And most of those people who do run a marathon, they'll only run one. So doing something as simple as running a marathon can put you in the top 1%. Have faith. Life is not fair. In Ecclesiastes says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor riches to the men of understanding, nor yet favor to the man of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. You know, this is a hard pill to swallow, because there are people who, a friend of mine who's dealing with cancer, she would love to run, but she can't. Sometimes we have to do the hard things for the people who can't do them. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. We have the ability to build up and to tear down with our words. Chad was talking about, how we talk to ourselves. Every time you say, I can't, or I'm tired, or any of these negative things, you're giving power through the words that you speak. I like to tell my wife, I used to always run on very little sleep. When I was a lineman, we'd have to work all hours of the night. And my first real ice storm, I hadn't gone to sleep. I got called out, and we worked 30 hours straight with no sleep. And then I got sent home on a 6-hour rest. Well, a 6-hour rest, when you got to drive an hour to get home and an hour back, is not no 6 hours of rest. So now they have, stricter requirements. We got to get more rest and stuff like that. But I learned to operate on very little sleep. And my wife's like, I don't know how you do it. Well, if this building were on fire right now, I don't care how tired you are, you will find the energy to get up and get out, right? So a lot of times it's all in just mindset. It's all in just choosing to do something. We put in the work, so when the time comes, we're not found unprepared. I went kayaking with my boys right after I ran my first marathon. And my son, Judah, got caught in a strainer. And my boys really didn't know how to swim real well. So let's go kayaking in some current. We were going on this survival trip with some friends, and we had got a bunch of rain the night before. The river was at the stage of like, you almost weren't supposed to be on it unless you had some training. And so I told my boys, I'm like, you got to stay close. You got to, follow us. Listen, don't go get caught. Well, Judah gets caught in this strainer. So what a strainer is the water coming around the bend. There was a tree down in the water. And so he got caught in his kayak, and his kayak was starting to try to flip, and he was trying to hold on, and I could see him. And I said, and he's like, so I was like, hold on. And so I went and tried to help him, and we both ended up in the water, and I had to swim him through the current to the shore. And thankfully, we were with a group of guys. They got the other kayaks and the gear out of the water. But thankfully, I was prepared for that. A year earlier, I would not have had the stamina and the strength to rescue my son. So our physical fitness is important, especially when it comes to protecting and providing for our family. So I'm thankful that I had put in the work, that when the time came, I was prepared. So this is just kind of a little lifetime totals I took this morning. I've run 2,872 miles since 2019. So you got to put in the work. There's no substitute. Wait. Oh, there's distance, 7,800 miles. Yeah, whatever. So I guess like my action takeaway from today, I hope that you guys have been encouraged. Identify areas that need improvement in your life. Set impossible goals, forge mental toughness, encourage others, and speak life. So I hope you guys have found this helpful. I was telling Eric, I have to work really hard just to be average. Imagine what you can do with a little bit of determination and hard work.
Do we have any questions?
Get out there and get up, start walking, go. Let's go.
Okay, you got 15 minutes to get your steps in, guys. Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah.